When a Best Buy employee told Jimmy Butler, "I'm sorry, we don't take special orders, sir," he had no idea that his refusal would go viral around the world. "Sir, we don't honor special requests. That's the one rule we have in this store." This sentence echoed throughout the gaming section of the TechZone electronics store in Miami Brickell. It was like an unquestionable decision, simple but sharp. For many people, it was just a normal Saturday. The beeping of cash registers, the dialogue between sales representatives and customers, and announcements about promotions filled their ears. But for Marcus de Leon, it was an opportunity to put a principle he believed in into practice: equal service, always and for everyone. Before continuing with the story, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. And of course, I look forward to your comments at the end of the story. Marcus, 29, had been working here for 6 years. His family, who had emigrated from Cuba, had taught him the importance of rules since childhood. For Marcus, saying no didn't mean setting boundaries. It meant ensuring justice. It didn't matter to him if someone was famous or ordinary, because rules were rules for everyone. That morning, as he was tidying up the toy section, he muttered the same phrase again: "The rules apply to everyone." The atmosphere in the store was familiar. The sweet smell from a newly opened coffee shop mixed with the slight metallic smell of electronic products fresh out of their boxes. The shelves sparkled, and customers wandered among the devices. Marcus straightened the collar of his shirt as usual and checked the name tag once more. It was 12:03 p.m. Marcus's attention was suddenly drawn to a man. He was walking around unobtrusively, with an athletic physique and simple clothing. He was wearing plain sweatpants and a hooded t-shirt. At first glance, he looked like an ordinary person, but there was confidence in his gait and focus in his eyes. Marcus didn't recognize him at first. In his eyes, this man was just an ordinary customer, curious, knowledgeable, and ready to ask familiar questions. "Good morning," said Marcus, extending his hand with a polite but confident expression. "I'm Marcus. I'm the gaming section specialist. Can I help you?" The man shook his hand, nodded, and smiled slightly. "Of course, I'm looking for a fully equipped gaming system for my son. It's his birthday next week. He's really into these things." Marcus smiled sincerely. "I'd be happy to help. What kind of budget are you looking at? Are you thinking about a PlayStation, an Xbox, or a gaming computer?" The man glanced at the screens. Serious but relaxed, he said, "Budget isn't important," he said. "I want the best. But before we start, I have a small request." Marcus paused for a moment. He knew these moments. The moment when a request went beyond a standard sale. It was an energy that experienced sales consultants sensed intuitively. "I just want to add a small voice message to the console," the man said, "in my own voice. At the start, I want a few words of advice for my son about following his dreams, something personal that will stay with him." And it was at this point that everything Marcus believed in began to crumble. Straightening up and making his voice a little more formal, he said, "I really appreciate your idea, sir," he said politely. "However, TechZone does not offer customization or personalization services for its products. All products are sold as they come from the factory. Unfortunately, this is our store policy." The man tilted his head slightly, looking a little confused but polite. "What if I offered to pay extra?" he said. "After all, it's just a few sentences of audio recording, not a technical modification." Marcus noticed that other shoppers around the aisle had started looking at him. There was a slight tension in the air, invisible, but clearly palpable. "Sir, it's not about the money," said Marcus. "It's a matter of standard practice. If we give special treatment to some customers, we're being unfair to others. Equality for all is the foundation of our service quality." The man looked directly at Marcus, attentively and calmly. "I understand," he said, "and I respect that. But we're not talking about changing how the device works. We're talking about creating a memorable experience." For the first time, Marcus felt a void inside. The man's voice, the calm determination in his eyes, and the rule he had repeated for years seemed to weigh heavily on him. "The rules apply to everyone," he thought again. But this time, the words seemed less like a familiar rule and more like a test. It was no longer their severity that was being questioned, but their validity. After a short silence, the man bowed his head and glanced at the consoles. Then he turned back to Marcus with a slight smile on his face. "I understand," he said. "You're just doing your job. It's very difficult to stick to the rules. I appreciate that." Marcus still didn't know who he was talking to. An ordinary-looking customer, but the confidence in his eyes and the balance in his words seemed to reveal something. The man, Jimmy Butler, nodded slightly and began to walk away. But just as he was about to leave the store, he paused for a moment. He turned back and looked Marcus in the eyes. "I'll find a way," he said. "I always do." His voice wasn't threatening or insistent. On the contrary, it was calm and determined. It was as if he was saying those words not to someone else, but to himself. Marcus stood there for a moment. The sounds of the crowd around him returned. Beeping cash registers, talking customers, and the smell of coffee. But his mind was already somewhere else. Almost 2 hours had passed. Marcus was back to his daily routine. He was recommending a student computer to a family, helping a young programmer choose a monitor, and explaining the differences between sound systems to an elderly couple. But his mind was no longer on game consoles. The same question kept running through his mind. Was this really equality? Giving everyone the same answer? Jimmy Butler's face wouldn't leave his mind. That look. It was like the look of a leader who remained cool even when his team was behind in a game. It was a familiar feeling, but Marcus still didn't know who the man was. It was 3:00 p.m. The glass doors of TechZone suddenly opened. The man who entered caught the attention of the crowd. Most people's heads turned toward him involuntarily. Jimmy Butler was back. But this time, he wasn't alone. 2 men carrying professional cameras were on his shoulders. One had a technical equipment bag on his back. The other had lighting equipment in his hands. The atmosphere in the store suddenly changed. The employees approached them slowly, nervous, while the customers took a step back. Jimmy did not head straight for the gaming section as expected. Instead, he started walking towards the customer service desk. "Excuse me," he said to the store manager in a polite but confident tone. "I'd like to ask you something. I'd like to shoot a short video in the parking lot. I think it would be an interesting idea for TechZone." The store manager was stunned. The room fell silent. Marcus stood there, confused but curious, trying to figure out what was going on. Then Jimmy calmly continued, "I'm Jimmy Butler." And at that moment, Marcus's heart began to beat so fast, it felt like it was going to jump out of his chest. It was as if the ground beneath him had shifted for a moment. His face quickly turned bright red, because standing in front of him was one of the most famous stars in the NBA, and he had said no to him. But of course, Jimmy didn't say a single word to embarrass him. Instead, he continued talking. "The employee told me, unfortunately, we can't customize it." And he was right. All eyes turned to Marcus. There was a tense silence in the store. "But if I can't customize this product, then I'll customize the experience." Marcus's mind was reeling. It was the first time in 6 years that he had experienced something like this. He didn't feel like a victim, but honored. And Jimmy pointed at Marcus with his finger. "I want him to be in this video too." At that moment, Marcus's eyes widened. It was as if the walls had come crashing down in front of everyone. That no was no longer an obstacle, but a bridge. His feet were planted firmly on the ground, but the storm raging inside him had shattered 6 years of routine. Jimmy Butler had pointed him out in the middle of the store, but it was never a warning. It was a thank you. The crowd fell silent, and Marcus proudly took the first step. He walked towards Jimmy, his heart beating a little faster with every step, his hands trembling slightly. The same sentence kept repeating itself in his head. Unfortunately, the rules apply to everyone. But now for the first time, those words echoed in his mind, not only with discipline, but also with inspiration. Jimmy turned to him. He smiled and extended his hand. "It's not easy to say no for the sake of principles," he said, "but you do it with respect and conviction. And now, with that conviction, we're going to speak to millions." They stepped outside. The Miami sun beat down on the TechZone parking lot. The asphalt was hot, but there was another kind of heat in the air, the warmth of humanity. The equipment was quickly set up. Cameras, microphones, lights. All of it looked simple, but it was ready to capture a meaningful moment. Jimmy turned to Marcus and said, "Just be yourself. Tell the cameras and the people who will be watching why you said no. Talk about your principles. And show everyone what it means to treat everyone equally. People definitely need to learn and hear this." Marcus took a deep breath. He had been trying to do his job with great dedication and discipline for 6 years. But now, for the first time, he was going to turn that job into his own story. The cameras started rolling. Jimmy looked at the camera and began to speak. 3 hours ago, I was in this store. I wanted to customize a console as a birthday gift for my son. And Marcus, with a firm yet gentle tone, said no. You know what? He was absolutely right. Marcus initially looked away, embarrassed. But when he noticed the sincerity in Jimmy's voice, all his tension melted away. Jimmy continued. "He didn't give me special treatment," he began. "He didn't even care how much money I could afford. He didn't care who I was. He saw me as just another parent who came in, and that's why I thought this story needed to be told here." The camera turned to Marcus. There was a moment of silence. It was as if there was a lump in his throat, but he began to speak without his voice wavering. "I just wanted to be a fair person," he said, "because if I give one person special treatment, I'm being unfair to everyone else. My mom and dad always taught me, equality means applying the same rules to everyone, no matter who that person is." Jimmy nodded. The deep respect on his face was obvious. And then he said the words that everyone should remember. "Marcus didn't allow customization of his product. That's why I customized my experience." This scene was completed with a single camera shot. There were no additional scenes or a written script, just 2 people. One committed to his principles, the other to his imagination. But those moments were so powerful that they cannot be described. Marcus looked at the TechZone sign, shining in the sun, and thought, "I hadn't changed the product. That's true, but maybe what I did will change a lot of things in this store." The cameras had stopped rolling, but those moments felt as if they were still being recorded. The tremor in Marcus's heart wouldn't subside. All those rules he had proudly carried with him for nearly 6 years now sounded different to his ears. They were the same, but they came from a deeper, more human place. As Jimmy gathered his equipment, he turned to Marcus and quietly placed his hand on his shoulder. "You know what?" Marcus said. "Today, you didn't just show the attitude of an employee, you also showed the value, determination, and honesty of a human being. And what you did will benefit all of humanity." Marcus felt like he had never been looked at that way before. Not just as an employee, but as a good example. 2 days later, shortly after the store opened, Marcus's phone started buzzing with notifications. A video was quickly spreading on social media, and the caption was clear: "A lesson from Jimmy Butler for everyone. No sometimes means more than yes." The video had over 1 million views in just 24 hours. Thousands of comments poured in. Many people said that as customer service employees, they had experienced similar pressure and felt caught between rules and their conscience. But Marcus's video was very different. He had reconciled both sides. Some people sent him private messages to find out his name. His LinkedIn profile suddenly started to attract attention. Even his old school friends sent him messages. "We saw you, and we're so proud of you." The comment that affected Marcus the most was this one. "Hi, I'm also a customer representative. I've always wanted to have the same strong attitude as you. And today, watching this video, I learned how to do it from you. Thank you." Marcus's eyes filled with tears for a moment as he read this message on the screen. For the first time, he felt inspired by something coming from a screen. A week later, TechZone headquarters sent Marcus an official invitation. He was asked to speak at a new training seminar at their headquarters in Miami. The title was "Creativity Within the Rules: The Story of Marcus de Leon." Hundreds of store managers would attend the seminar. The topic was clear: equality, loyalty, but also serving with empathy. As Marcus prepared for his presentation, he realized something. Until that day, he had almost memorized the policies, but he had never explained them. However, the simple sentence he had said to Jimmy was now turning into pages of principles. "If I give one person special treatment, I'm being unfair to everyone else." But now he was adding something else. Sometimes even a soft but negative "no" can be the right thing to say when said in the right way. to enable a whole world of people to say yes. 1 month later, TechZone launched a new internal training program. Its name, Inspiration Through Principles. Every new employee was shown Marcus's story, and every sales representative was asked, how can we look within the rules, rather than outside them, to find creative solutions? Small but powerful changes had already begun in the store. Customer requests were being listened to more carefully, and instead of simply saying no, there was transparency and empathy in explaining why. Because Marcus was the first and only one to draw that line. Now, thanks to Jimmy Butler, they had the opportunity to show it to the entire country. Jimmy stopped by TechZone every now and then. There were customers who recognized Marcus and watched the video. He would come in with a smile, chat with the employees even if he didn't buy anything, and remind Marcus of this every time. You didn't customize me, but you gave my son the most customized gift. What honesty and integrity look like. There was only one thing left to describe the emotion Marcus felt that day. He had started as just a store employee, but now he was a representative of something. Equality, principled stance, and silent heroism. And he thought to himself, unfortunately, I may not have been able to add a voice to a console, but maybe I added a voice to the conscience of millions. Have you ever experienced a moment when saying no turned into something bigger? If so, share your story with me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring true stories.